So, welcome to the podcast. This is going to be Brandon, aka DroneCast Media. He's back on the podcast with something special. If you don't know him, you should. He's the guy who knows a little bit about everything that you may need in the future. I'm running short on time, so let's get to the podcast. I got the a couple of bamboos and then a P1P going in the background. I had to silence the fans for this.
Yeah, they can ruin a lot of stuff, especially shots. If you're trying to get shots, you hear that fan noise and you're like, of course there's plugins now and Resolve, so it's not all that bad.
Yeah, I haven't messed too much with the plugins on the Bamboo, but I've seen a lot of the slicer plugins that'll help with some of the issues I'm running into at the moment. Extrusion issues on the P1P. I think as soon as they released their, P1S, the update they released intentionally messed with the P1P. Because I'd built the enclosure, printed out every little cool thing. Most of the stuff we do out here for it is like tool holders, knickknacks, just printed a card box for a customer, like a Magic the Gathering,
Yeah.
trinket stuff.
How's that scene out there? Is it pretty, is there a need for, say, like fabricators that have small hubs, or is it just kind of, oh, okay, so the market's much bigger out there then?
It's crazy because I thought it was going to be heavily saturated. Like they have everything they need and everyone knows somebody. But it turns out most people are part-timers. And it's like, we part-time weld. Oh, we part-time print stuff.
Hobbyists.
Yeah, hobbyists. That's the word I was looking for. Hobbyists. Nobody does it mainstream 24/7. Somebody's always got a side job or something they're doing full-time. And then it's just a pain to get done. So
yeah, it makes it, that's pretty cool. So then you could probably make a little market there for it, possibly.
It's working. I was
Dude,
surprised.
I started out on a kitchen table, man. Like I literally just gone through a breakup with my ex-wife, and like I was 3D printing on a kitchen table, and then the idea came to me. I'm like, well, shit, there's probably people out here that need parts printed, and it wasn't like it is now. I mean, in fact, I think 3D Hubs was something like brand new.
Yeah.
And it just slowly built up, dude, and ended up with like 10 printers and then 20 printers, and 20 turned into 30, and built a bunch of Chinese kits.
Yeah, I made the mistake of buying 8 Ender 3s and then 2 Ender 5 Pluses, and I was like, I'm going to make a farm. It was last Christmas 2021. I think right after we had done a podcast. Yeah. It was hilarious because I think we built 8 of them, 2 of the pluses and 6 of the Ender 3s. And then we printed maybe 5 things off of them. And then nothing. I was like, nope, I'm done. That's it. I'm good. Until we moved out here, and the Bamboo Lab was just like, all right, it's all together. It looks like something I can use part-time. And then that kind of blew up. And I'm like, can't keep printing.
It changes. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think a lot of people, especially early on, even myself included, thought that, 3D printing would be something that, was sort of plug and play. You could buy a machine and then, kind of just, make adjustments here and there, and then it would magically work. And as I think a lot of people found out, and I think a lot of 3D printers ended up in the closet because of it, there's a lot more work that goes into it, and you really, 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 like, through and through have to love it. It's like an obsession.
Yeah, I was so lucky. I was on my 29th day when the last Ender 5 came to me from Amazon, and I decided, I was like, nope, I'm sending them all back. So I opened returns on all of them, threw them all into a giant cardboard box, just taped them all up and sent them out. Got every dime back, luckily.
Yeah, you're lucky. I think a lot of people, they'll do that, and they either won't get their money back or they'll get partial refunds, and you know how that game goes. I mean, you're in retail, so
yeah,
it's a hard, especially nowadays. It's difficult to really, unless you get into like a specialized field with 3D printing. I feel like the markets, the markets here in the States are completely, like you say, saturated. There are a few places where, you can make a buck, but even then, there's stiff competition. You have, 3D Hubs, you have, there's another one called Exomi, or so, not Exomi, that's a brand that makes cell phones. I forget the name of it. There's like three or four major. I've been out of the game so long, I've forgotten a lot of the names of the people. But there's like three or four major players now. All you have to do is upload your file, and they handle all of it. Obviously, it's way overpriced because they have a ton of overhead and they have to, pay the bills. I get it, but I think it's a lot more convenient for the consumer that's sort of a novice, with 3D printing. Either they didn't want to jump into it or whatever have you. So that's a difficult game, man. Unless you're in like the biomedical industry, and that's next level. You're using machines like SLS machines, powder bed. You're using resin's a lot more these days. It's a lot more common. You see a lot of it nowadays. Shit, just go on Amazon and you see, in fact, here's a crazy one for you. So back when I was into it, around, we'll say circa 2014, you were hard pressed to find engineering resins at a decent price. And now, when I go on like Amazon, I'll just, for shits and giggles, I look up, the prices of different resins, because I still do 3D printing, but it's mostly for camera gear. You see that the prices have not only gone down, but the material manufacturers, they don't care about IP. So you have chemical formulations that are, from Germany. We'll just say like Germany, right? Or Poland, or, those are hot spots for 3D printing. They're like cutting edge in Europe. And so they'll develop these resins. The Chinese will copy them, and then next month you see them out on Amazon for like $50, for a thousand, grams, or whatever whatever scheme they're pulling, business scheme they're pulling. But it's really crazy how cheap it now is and how easy it's become, especially with resin printing. Although I will say, I cringe when I look at YouTube videos of people using MSLA or SLA printers, and they're like barehanded holding the models, and they have, photopolymer all over their fingers.
That's me.
It's so dangerous, dude. Like, it's so like hazardous. Like, people just don't know.
I understand, but I'm also the guy who solders without a face mask.
Basically, I heard this story one time, and no, it wasn't me. I heard this story one time where a maker got some resin on his fingers, had cleaned it off. He cleaned his hands off, and he thought that the resin was completely washed off of his hands. Well, then he goes and tosses off, and he ends up in the ER with burns on his junk because he still had the photopolymer on his fingers. I mean, this shit is seriously poison. It burned his penis. Like, it's no joke. This stuff is no joke. So a lot of people don't understand that. They just, back when I didn't understand it either, we've all gone through things like that. Luckily, I never burned my penis, thank God. But there's these funny stories that you hear, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm so lucky I'm not that dude.
Yeah, when we first at Love to Fix, that was the first thing I bought, was one of those Elegoo resin 4K screens. The first print, luckily, I punctured the vat. So resin went everywhere. It was a waste of $200. And so there was this kid, Frank, who was working. Everyone knows Shithead Franks. But it's one of those things where he got it all over his hands. And now I'm thinking to myself, I hope, he didn't get that injury. But,
Well, from what I hear, it's super that the person that, and I'm not going to name names, I know this person, he's in a maker group, and it was like a joke, everybody, and it's so interesting, all these young people, they do everything for thrills. They're like putting all this stuff up on YouTube and TikTok, and included, he's in that age. He's like what do they call him, the Gen Z or whatever, group. And so they do all this stuff, and it was kind of like, it kind of took off, and like people actually, from that, people are learning what not to do, right? Yeah. Do not whack off after you are done without gloves, handling photopolymer.
Oh, any hazardous material, anything with a crossbones on it, do not touch yourself.
There is a reason why they have crossbones on something like that.
Absolutely.
You remember the old poison control stickers you'd see on the old landlines?
Oh, yeah. The skull and crossbones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
I have a funny story, a really cool story too. I'll tell about that. So, my dad, my biological father, I was raised by my stepdad, but my biological father, and granted, this was when I was a little kid, so I didn't know him. I didn't meet him until I was like 10, but he came up with a brand. It was a beer brand, and it was called Brain Dead Beer, and it had the cross, the skull and bones. And what he did was back then, and I think this was like the mid to late 80s, probably the late 80s, maybe early 90s. What he did was he took this, and it was brilliant. He took the Surgeon General's warning, and back then the Surgeon General warning, and I think probably even today, the really small text at the bottom. He blew it up and he said, consuming this alcoholic beverage may kill you and others you don't even know. And it was sort of like a joke. And of course, I don't think the Surgeon General took it very well. They had sold like 200,000 cases to like AMPM, and they had to return all the money because the Surgeon General comes back and they're like, oh no, absolutely not. You're not going to make a mockery of us. We are pulling your beer out. But I thought that was kind of funny when we were talking about. So it's called Brain Dead Beer. In fact, one of these days I'll send a picture to you. It was so cool.
Oh my God, that'd be great. I'd love to see it.
Well, nowadays you see like water, right? You see wicked water, death water or whatever. I don't know if you've seen that before in the supermarket. You're walking down.
Liquid, what is
Liquid
that?
death.
Liquid death. Yeah, I just bought a case of their raspberry sweet tea or whatever.
Yeah, it's actually really good. It's like bitchin'. It's super good.
It's crazy that it's so inexpensive for what the quality is, but also so expensive looking and tasting.
Right.
They're actually doing something genuine with, which is surprising to a lot of companies.
I mean, like these are all like marketing ploys, that companies use. I think it's brilliant. I think Brain Dead Beer was way ahead of its time, but the market wasn't ready for that, and I don't think the Surgeon General was either at the time. I mean, come on, it was the Reagan administration in the 80s, so
I'm not a crook. I'm not a crook.
You're right, exactly, right? So tell me, like, dude, I miss you, man. Like, it's crazy not having you in SAC. Like,
oh, it's nuts. So, well, you've heard the story. I sold Love to Fix to Anthony. He's now the owner operator. Fraud with Eric. Then we had a blackball employee that tried to steal a bunch of money and not work at all, which was fun. Stealing by money, by time. But
dude, what do people think you are? Like some freaking dartboard or something? Like, well, dude, you've been through so much shit.
We made a lot of money up until January. So there was a lot of money flowing in that was cash basis. Like the IRS would have loved it.
Oh,
the problem is most of those guys felt very entitled, like they had made this happen. They did any of the advertising, any of the name, any of the buildup of the equity of that store and its vibe, I spent 8 years working 7 days a week so I could afford employees to be that store. And it was funny because once I brought Eric out here with me, I had given him a $5,000 bonus for, hey, you've been with me a couple of years now and you're going to take over the store for me while I'm gone. I appreciate you. And I told my wife, one of two things is going to happen. He's either going to take the money and he's going to move because everyone's leaving California when they got a little pocket change, or two, he's going to double down, hope for a bigger bonus next year or bigger things in the horizon and stick with the company. So kind of like, any business owner would be like, all right, I'm buying him of a sort, but also promoting him of a sort,
Right.
So you feel like there's no way this man's going to steal from me. But then we had about 40,000 in loss over the next 2 months. It was like, okay, so what's going on? Turns out the store's numbers started going from 70,000 to 20,000. Well, people didn't care to work or post or reply to ads to get the customers in. They were like, well, nobody's here saying you have to. And so we tried to get new people in, train them new, but it turned out Eric was the sour one and it was all downhill from there. Yet he was the one running it for me. So by the time we found out, we were probably down like 60 grand. And I had put a bunch of cash back into it to like reinvigorate the store. And here's the new plan we were going to do. And so that was the entire stress. All the stress I had here at this store, because we had built a new store here in Oklahoma. And it was supposed to be, we only pay, I think our overhead here is $1,000 a month for everything.
Oh my God.
Before employees, which we now have a couple. But man, it is
Holy moly.
inexpensive here. We rent a house literally a stone's throw behind us, and we walk to work every day. And that and this is under 2 grand every month with groceries. It's
Wow.
crazy. And it's a great place. We thought it was going to be an easier task of running that remotely. Turns out you can't even trust your best friends. I'd known,
No, that's the problem. Yeah, it
yeah,
just there's so many backstabbers and like it's like that song from the OJ's, man. You know, they'll smile in your face every time they want to take your place. The
yeah,
backstabbers, like,
yep.
dude, it's like nowadays it's amplified by like 20 versus back then.
Everything business wise is pure opportunity nowadays. It's so intense. If
Especially
it's,
here in Cali, man, home of the
yeah,
backstabbers.
yeah. So we decided to sell it. So I probably took like another $100,000 loss on that store, selling it
Mm,
quickly to get it. Like I just couldn't think about posting it, sitting there and working there when I got kids here. And I was like, no,
right.
I'll just give it to somebody I know who has the capital, move it quick. Here you go, sign everything off. It was instant. So I went out there and fired everybody.
One less liability.
Yeah. You know what's funny? The first month he worked there and ran it, he tripled their numbers like that. It was the only like, oh man, I shouldn't have sold it because he made in 1 month half of what he was going to pay me. It's
Wow.
crazy. It's
Yeah, there's a lot of money in, electronic repair. I mean, I speaking of that, what's really interesting is just how much money these third party companies make from like cinema camera repair.
oh yeah,
Not like DSLR, but like cinema camera. Like they'll have the major studios sometimes just send them, like an Arri Alexa Plus, a Classic, a Mini, an LF, whatever model. And like just to open the case up,
hmm.
you're talking a bare minimum of $5,000.
So funny enough, I had a company in Texas send me
Uh-huh.
a red camera,
Oh
and it
yeah,
was a
Red.
what was it? An SDI connector had broken.
Mm-hmm.
So for a single SDI connector repair, I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was throwing out a ridiculous quote because the part was $200. Would have taken me 2 hours. So I 2,800 bucks. He was like,
Sure.
"Oh shit, you're half as expensive as the next guy." What?
You're creating a new market all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was intense. I would never gotten such a yes for anything over $1,000 in my life, and it was instant. And he was like, "Yeah, we
There's
go. I wire the
big
money."
money in that, dude. Big money in
Yeah.
that.
So
But you also have to have the staffing, you have to have the equipment, you have to have
exactly.
the know-how, and a lot of people lack at least one of those, or I feel maybe two of those. And if you're lacking even one of those, and if you screw the pooch, like I mean, look, an Arri camera's 50, 60,000 bucks used, right? A brand new one's about 150 G's.
Have you upgraded
So
your rig yet?
so no, I took the approach of, we have this up and coming production, which I'll
Yeah.
talk about a little later, but I'm now taking the production approach of renting. So just renting them out, renting both the glass and the bodies out. And the reason why is because, the expenses always add up. And if it's not the expense of the cards, it's the expense of the glass. If it's not the glass, it's the accessories that go around on, each of the cameras. And a lot of the high-end brands have proprietary add-ons and equipment. And yes, I mean, I like to think of myself as a hardware hacker, and to some extent I am, but you really have to stop and think about what you're working on. And if you mess something up, the expense of cleaning that mess up is a lot more than just sending it off to be worked on in the first place in a proper facility.
You have no
Um,
idea how much that resonates with me today because I think I told you I got an A7 IV we're recording on right now.
yeah,
And that was my
great cameras.
second purchase. I
Mhm.
couldn't get this from Best Buy at the time, and I wanted that camera so bad. I was like, no, I want it now, or I'll get it from Amazon. But I'm more impulsive. If it's in my hand, I can be sold on it or bought it. That's my problem.
Yep.
So I try to avoid the store. So I went and got an A7C. and I liked it. Not so much for the video, but for the photos. And I was like, well, worst case, I can become a real estate photographer and do all the fun stuff that everyone's like, I'll fall back on this. Because
Right.
I was like, I just want free time. So when I stepped away from Love to Fix and my other responsibilities, I was like, I'm just going to play. And, once I started looking into the accessories, I was dumbfounded at how many things were specifically Sony,
Yep.
specifically Nikon, Canon, Red, Ari. Everything was, it's got to be made for this at this millimeter with this dimensions, and this only goes to 2 stops, 4 stops, 8 stops. Every pole is like this many millimeters. There was, like I was saying earlier, we came into some money last December. I got unemployment money from 2020 since I worked through the pandemic. As a business owner, they were like, here you go, here's 40 grand.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. If you have a certain amount of W-2 employees, you get, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't even know we applied for this. Awesome. Here's 40 grand. I'm already moving, saving money. I'll put 10 grand in my cameras. I
Right.
spent like 15. But so I bought both cameras, 4 lenses each.
hmm
Stupidly, none of the lenses match the millimeter or size. So I have no 2 lenses of the same to do a podcast properly. So I have to kind of like,
Oh,
one's going to be 40, one's going to be 35 and kind of zoom it. So there's always a little tweaking and editing. But so I found out real quick how expensive these things are and how much space they take up. And it was exhausting. For months, I was carrying around only one backpack on flights and drives to and from that was all camera gear.
yep.
I couldn't do it. I had to downsize.
It's a lot. It's a lot to consider and to take on. Even though camera technology, I mean, like I think didn't I send you something on the Sigma FP?
Yeah.
Yeah. So great camera, underrated, horribly underrated because of their first edition of firmware that they came out with. Um, it is a full frame that it shoots in RAW.
Mm-hmm.
And so like not log, but RAW. The picture that comes out of it is absolutely amazing. In fact, they have custom profiles designed in the camera so that it can be used as a viewfinder on set with major cameras like Arri, Red, Sony Venice 2. Sony, speaking of Sony, they have probably the best camera out in the world of cinema. It's the Sony Venice 2, absolutely amazing. But this little camera for a B cam, and even an A cam in some situations, because you can alter everything with a lookup table, or if you're working with a pro colorist, it's you can make it look just like a Sony Venice 2. The only way you could tell is if you were, a 20 plus year cinematographer looking at the picture, right?
Yeah.
Pixel peaking and doing all this, it's the only way you could really tell the difference. Which brings me to why go out and spend exorbitant amounts of money on cinema cameras when 9/10 of the people that use these cameras don't need the functionality that a true cinematographer would need, like
Yeah.
buttons on the side for focus peaking or 3 record buttons or, like all this stuff.
Oh, the
So,
moment I got my second camera, I wanted the FX3 all of a sudden. I was like, and then
oh, that is yeah, hands down, that's like that's an FP killer, like in terms of the color. It's like a miniature Venice. I mean,
you're
and
not
again,
helping here. You're not helping.
it's hard, man. It's an addiction. I am totally addicted to cameras.
Yeah,
If
but
there's one vice.
I didn't follow through on doing anything with cameras except for the vlogs and this. So I felt
Mhm.
like I was I could do somebody's college portraits or their high school
Sure.
photos and all that stuff. I could charge for that if I had the time to do it. And if I wasn't
Right.
running multiple stores, that's my problem. So
Yeah.
it I have a love for the camera, absolutely. It's a lot. Because even I saw something last night, the M Light. Have you heard of it?
hmm
Yeah, that just got me into a whole headspace of retrofitting older cameras for newer bodies. And with the 3D printing, I
Yep.
was like, well, I could print that. That's easy to mold. I could just, I already do metalworking too. My CNC,
Yep.
done. Because I made my own battery cage. I bought a small rig, took the dimensions, and took their cage, made a battery rig. So little things like that that people who tinker like you and me, we could do those things, but I'm a little bit too busy to follow through on like, oh, I can do it and then mass produce it, and then I feel
Oh
bad
my
about it
God,
later.
dude, that sounds like my like so my wife and I we have fights about that all the time. Like I she'll say, "Oh, hey babe, maybe we should just go and get, this or that for the house, right?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh no, I can just 3D print that." And she gives me that look and she's like, right. With what time?
Yeah.
You've got so many things, so many irons in the fire. When will you actually have the time to follow through and create it? And I'm just like, oh, okay, I hate admitting it, but yeah, you're right.
Most of the time you don't, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm
It's
right
like,
there with I think the cabinets and the countertop that I was building. So I've got everything glued up, but it's been like two and a half
mhm.
months. The follow through. I'll find 2 hours to do it and then something will come up.
Yep.
It's a nightmare. But I think that's just
I know,
the
man.
the the
It's not
male
easy.
fight is
I
time.
wish I could just play all day with my toys. I love CNC. I love 3D printing. I even like, hand fabrication. There's just there's something so relaxing and then rewarding at the end of it where you're like, I didn't buy this, I made this,
Hmm.
you know?
It's something
And it's
natural.
so rare. It's so rare these days. I see so many people, especially the younger generation, with a small percentage of them being makers like us. I see them just, no, I'd just rather buy it. And the funny thing is, that's the right thing to do when you're busy.
Mhm.
But being like us, it just, yeah,
So,
I'd rather 3D print it if I can.
are you doing any printing on the drones? You got any? I see you got quite
Um,
the drone
I
behind you.
Yeah, no, I actually that's just a hopped up modified what is it? H480, one of the first uniques that came out I just took the top off, threw some masking tape on it, gave it a paint job. I relocated the transmitter. Let me see here.
I can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so now it has better signal. This is for the downlink, the telemetry downlink for the actual copter itself. And then the next thing I'll probably end up doing is pimping out the camera with a bigger or better decibel antenna on there. But just little tweaks here and there. I mean, it's a B copter. It's not something that you would use on like a production or anything, but it's fun. Actually, funny you saw that. So I don't know if you know, but the old Save Mart off of Manzanita now, it's not Save Mart, it's Food Max now.
On
And so
Manzanita, where?
Manzanita and Winding at the intersection there where the Chevron's at, behind there, there's a grocery store. Not the Safeway by where your old shop used to be. If you
Oh
keep
yeah.
going down, yeah. So it's a Food Max now. So it was cool today. I had to go out and pick up a food order because my wife was like, I'm just gonna take it easy today. Worked hard, so I went and picked up her food, and then on my way back, I see this shopping cart that looks like the shopping cart from Jackass. It's that huge big red shopping cart. And in fact, it's on my social media. I posted a quick video of it. So it has a 454 big block on this thing, all customized. It's just so bitchin'. He fired it up, the headers come right out, and it's so cool. But anyhow, they had this big shopping cart, this big red shopping cart out there. So I took this drone and I just got some, simple footage with it, but it's not a production drone at all. It's not
Oh, it just looked
something.
really cool. I hadn't seen. It looked like a
Yeah.
unique to me because we've done some work on them in the past, but I didn't know that they had a red. I was like, oh, maybe you souped it up with some 3D printing, or you crashed it and repaired
Well,
it. You know.
interestingly enough, they do have both the front and the top on repositories they have the 3D files for it. But I mean, the weight savings I mean, unless you're using some super, rare filament or, powder bed, some type of, nylon or something that's lightweight,
Bamboo
not
Labs accidentally sent me their carbon fiber filament that I didn't order
uh-huh,
in my X1 Carbon purchase. I still haven't.
uh-huh.
I think I used that for a speaker set to wall mount some Razer speakers, but I haven't done anything cool with it. I should reprint my Mini 3 DJI Mini 3 housing because I know I have the STL5 for it.
Yeah. DG,
That'd be
you know
cool.
what, man? Straight out of the get, like I have my hat goes off to DGI. For a prosumer and even their professional level stuff, they've always done really well at listening to what the drone community really wants, and they create it. They
Yep.
go out there and they make it. And I felt like Unique really never did that. And the funny thing is, I guess the reason why I went with the H480, and it's old too, is because it's open source. So the FC, and you have to hack the FC, you have to trick it, and there's a firmware called Thunderbird,
Yep.
and Thunderbird hooks in with because it's a Mavlink protocol, so it sends out Mavlink heartbeat back and forth. But now with the new firmware in the drone, I can fly it from Mission Planner software, or even what's the other one? It used to be Tower. I can't think off the top of my head, but anything, any software, any ground control station that uses Mavlink protocol, you can. So it's open source. You can do cool shit like that you never could before. So even though it's old, because it has an open source controller in it, it's great. Now I can't say the same about DJI. However, they're smart. They know that 90% of their drone base is not going to be opening the drone up, messing with the flight controller, trying to do hardware and software hacks, like you or I would do. And so, but they really listen, and that's the thing I do like about DJI. And the quality of their cameras, I have to say, it's really
It's
improved.
getting crazy.
They have a new drone out, and it's a little pricey. I think it's like 6 grand or something. It's a miniature cinema drone, and
Yep.
I think they're using a true 1 inch sensor on it, which gives much better dynamic range than the small cameras that they used to have out. But I was blown away by the quality, and it shoots in log, and I think there's even a sort of raw, but it's not raw. It's kind of like a Black Magic's B raw,
Yeah, I've
to
seen that.
raw, actual raw. But it was impressive when I looked at their material, their marketing material. I was like, geez, these guys have really stepped their game up, and it's consistent. It's been consistent. So
I keep
my hat
seeing
goes up to DJI.
their stuff. Like I bought, I think it was the Rode 2 Mini Go set.
Uh huh.
Immediately saw their microphones and I was like, why didn't I buy these? And then I found
Yep.
I had such a hard time plugging in to my iPhone to do some shorts on YouTube, the microphone for better sound to the Rode, but I didn't know you had to
Mhm.
have a special TCRS cable strictly from Rode.
Oh, that's how they get you, man. It's in
Yeah,
the accessories.
it was like $100 worth of cables to find that out. Just stupid. And then I was like, I should have just got the damn DJI. It would have paired to Bluetooth. Boom, done. Simple.
By the way, dude, that XLR that you hooked me up with a while back, that is an awesome XLR. The build quality on that is awesome.
Cool. I did.
Yeah, that was a really, really nice XLR. And I mean, I use stuff like Livewire, which is nice. It's from, Guitar Center. It's like their primo brand. But the one that you gave me, and I looked at the price point too. Like I went on and I looked it up. It's for what you get, it's better than Livewire, I think.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh
well,
yeah.
cool. Glad I did something cool. So what are you into right now? You mentioning there's a project you're working on. I know you want to get to that.
Yes.
What? Tell me what the project is.
Okay, so I have a couple of friends of mine who are up in Oregon, the Oregon area. Interestingly enough, I met this person. His name's Hayden. I met Hayden back when I had my 3D printing business, and one of his elephants needed a tusk redesigned and then fabricated.
Hold on.
And so,
He has an elephant in Oregon.
yeah, it's crazier than that, man. It really is. It's the story is amazing. So I I met Hayden, really liked him. I went up to his 770-acre refuge, and I thought, once I got past the secured gates and cameras and all that, and actually went and met him for the first time, it was like being in Jurassic Park. Hayden has two elephants. He has, and one of those elephants, actually, Baba, happens to be Michael Jackson's elephant. And the story gets crazy. So Hayden was um, he was the chief handler, wildlife expert at Neverland Ranch for like 10 or 15 years, maybe. I don't remember the exact amount of time. And when Michael lost everything, Neverland Ranch included, Hayden said, "Hey, let's work something out." He goes, Baba will be, much better with me because I have property and I can take care of her, and my wife's a vet. She'll be a lot better off with me. Can we do that, and then maybe a little bit of cash to make up for my losses? And Michael agreed to it, and so he ended up getting Baba. So Baba's still there, so it's Susie and Baba, and then he has the only rhinoceros in private hands, and it has a lot to do with the fact that his wife is a respected doctor, and she's specifically a vet that deals with large animals. So he has a white rhino, a southern white rhino, African rhino. His name is Spike. He's super cool. It looks like a freaking triceratops. Like when you see him, you're just like, holy shit, you're looking at a dinosaur. Monkeys.
I can't even imagine a white rhino. I just think of if the guy from Ace Ventura painted the rhino the wrong color,
Right. They are prehistoric by all means. They're not very intelligent. They're very, very difficult to handle. And it takes a special type of person. In fact, it's impossible today for a private citizen without, medical degrees and the financing, the backing, and the area, a safe area that's away from the general public to have something like that. It kind of brings me back to like the whole Tiger King thing, right? So I talked to Hayden throughout the years. Hayden was always kind of interested in doing an educational program that, him and his wife, Stephanie, so it would have like scenes. It's going to have scenes with Stephanie and Hayden with the animals, taking care of the animals, medical procedures that have to be done on the animals, big animals. And more importantly, it's going to set this docu-series is going to set itself aside from the norm, which you would see like the run and gun type deal. Instead, it's going to be focused on, we're going to be using cinema cameras, like real cameras, not docu-style cameras, run and gun cameras.
Hey everybody, if you like the podcast, like, comment, subscribe. Just wanted to take a second to let you know the GoFundMe is in the link in the description, the first link. You can't miss it. If you can't give, you may know somebody who can. The behind the scenes of all this, it's a great fund. Go ahead and help. Send it to somebody who can, $1, a penny. Every dollar, every donation gets you a ticket to come visit the sanctuary on the last day of filming. As myself, I'm gonna be there. So if you wanna come hang out, let me know in the comments below. I'll see you there. Back to the podcast. So
we're doing a docu-series. It's called For the Love of Animals, and it's going to highlight the difficulties, meaning the dramas, that they have. They have people, handlers there that are employees, because there's a lot of animals up at the refuge. There's, of course, the elephants, the rhino. There's exotic cats. They have a Canadian lynx, a caracal. They have a crane. They have ostriches, tortoises. It's like all of the animals that you would see in a zoo, but it's not a zoo. It's private. It's closed off to the public.
How large is it?
770 acres. It's massive.
And this is in Oregon?
This is in Southern Oregon. Yep. Right outside of Rogue River area.
Why do I think Oregon is not that big? How big is Oregon? 770 acres. Why? My head, for some reason, oh God, I'm an idiot. I was thinking of somewhere else. You're right above California, no wonder. We drove
Right.
through
Yeah.
Oregon to get to, what was it, Tacoma, Washington, to visit our cousins in late 2020 when we were like, hey, we got to get out of California. So I think
Hmm.
we went through, what is that Oregon Pass?
Yeah. So it's Portland and then Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah, just straight up from California.
Yep.
And it
That's a
was,
nice drive.
well, it was scary. It was the first time we took the Tesla cross country, and it
Oh.
was so nerve wracking. This is at peak battery performance,
Uh-huh.
brand new car, and I still almost ran out. Zero on both the going there and the coming because there's a huge distance across that Oregon trail that
Yep.
there was a nice couple because we were on 0 miles for like 20 miles and we ran out in front of their little what is it, Azalea,
Yeah.
which is right before the Black Bear Diner at the top of the hill.
Yep.
And they let us charge there, gave me, the kids, everyone hot cocoa. We had conversations for a few hours. It was one of the best accidental breakdowns ever had in my life. And it
Oh yeah.
was,
Small towns, you always get people that are super helpful. I mean, that's one of the things, even though everybody knows everyone's business in a small town,
mm,
everybody, even if you can't stand your neighbor, like if they get snowed in or something happens, everybody's there to help no matter what. And you just don't see that in the big cities.
I had
Not
never
anymore, at
experienced
least.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
It's the first time you experience it, you're just like, wow, okay,
I was like,
this is
there's
what
nice
it,
people
right,
everywhere, just not where I'm
everywhere.
at.
They wave, they don't flip you off, they wave.
Exactly. And when I came out here, it was a stark reality. I think of Woodward, Oklahoma, like Sacramento, Rio Linda,
Hmm.
15 years ago. There's a lot of redneck people, but they don't give a shit about your business. They care if you're
Right,
happy, if you're healthy, if you got everything going on. They'll say hi, you need something. They don't care anything else. If you're out on the corner screaming and messing their Sunday or Saturday up, yeah, they got a problem. Just
right,
go take that down the road. That's about it.
right. Yeah, don't do it. Yeah, don't do it here. Don't be a dick. There's kids around,
Hmm.
yeah.
It's getting
Basic,
crazy.
the basic stuff.
To see, but you say it's basic. That's my problem with a lot of people out there in California. It's no, that means you're doing nothing. That you have to think, elevate your mind. Everyone's business is your business. You need to change their opinion.
Woke,
Yeah, that's hilarious.
right.
So
Woke.
how you knew this guy? You
Uh-huh.
went out there and you visited.
Hmm.
You saw this. How did the how did the series come to be? Were you just like, hey, I do this for a living.
Hmm.
I'd love to shoot this. Did you shoot him a mini piece or?
Yeah, so basically the way that it all started, and it was a long time coming. So when I say that, it was probably about, shoot, I probably a couple of months after I was on your podcast that, we started talking about it a little bit more because it was always in passing. Yeah, it'd be cool to do something. And then finally, all of the pieces kind of fell into place. So I have a really good friend of mine from Los Angeles who's a producer there, and I have another friend down there who's a very well-known screenwriter. And these people, because of everything that's going on in the industry with the writer's strike and actors walking off and whatnot, they now have the time to kind of help out on a project like this. So perfect timing, and it helped that I knew them and they had been friends, and
Yeah,
so they were like, yeah, okay, fundraise. If you're able to fundraise, 15 grand within the first week, we'll do it. We're in. And so I did it. And now I started a GFM, a GoFundMe. We're at 52,000 now. Our goal is 100 grand. And it's been an uphill battle, but I had some insight on the way that GFM has how their critiquing algorithm works now. So I'm fairly confident that we'll surpass the $100,000 mark. We have a guarantee if we don't hit that mark from a private money source. Just because I didn't want to start this project and be like, oh yeah, there's not enough funds and we have to cut this or cut that. But we still are actively campaigning and doing what we can. In fact, I'm sure you saw the fun run that I did, although it wasn't all quite that fun because it's been a long time since I've run a distance like that.
well, it
Um,
it shows
her,
a bit of determination, especially that's the equivalent of me going for a 1/4 mile run, you know, and being like, this is for something I believe in. It would be painful.
Yeah.
I'd be
I think a
sweaty.
lot of people, that wasn't even my idea actually. So the cinematographer who we hired, who's up and coming, he's an amazingly skilled person. His name's Connor Bates. Connor had the idea and he pitched it to me. He's like, you know, maybe I should go down the Vegas Strip and have somebody follow me and live stream, like his audience. And so I kind of stole the idea from him because he was wrapping up production or in the middle of production rather on a documentary in Sonoma, California. But so he didn't have the time to do it. So I was like, I'll take the torch, and long story short, I felt like somebody beat me with baseball bats. I hurt so bad. But that's stuff that you really don't see a lot of, especially on platforms like GoFundMe. I mean, most of the people that are there, there's a lot of medical, campaigns that are on, and I love that. I love that random strangers, just feel generosity to give to, a kid that has leukemia, or I like stuff like that. But you don't usually see you don't see a campaign where the campaigner does something like run.
You see that more on Patreon. Like
Yeah.
you'll pay and then get something in return. There's a tier system,
Right.
but not on
Right.
GoFundMe. You get
Yeah.
updates, but it's a
Right.
separate thing.
We actually opened it up. So our last day of filming in November, we're going to have a donors appreciation day where anybody who donated will get to come up to the refuge and hang out with the crew and the animals and, the star, obviously Hayden and Stephanie, and just have a day where it's fully catered. They can just enjoy themselves and be out there. So as far as a perk, that's different, than a lot of other GoFundMe's. But I think it's interesting, especially with GoFundMe, you really have to. Everything falls on you. They don't really reciprocate unless your campaign is bringing a lot of traffic in, donations. So it's really up to the person that's campaigning to make it happen. Next stunt I'm pulling, which you'll probably like, is I'm going to be jumping out of a helicopter. I'm going to be skydiving out of a helicopter.
Why?
Well,
Hold on, before you answer,
yeah.
no, fucking why?
I'm a thrill seeker. I love that kind of stuff. And on top of that, of course, I haven't done crazy stuff like that. I mean, last time I was skydiving was, God, I don't know.
I was 22, and that was my last time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. But I think that when people see stuff like that, it gets their attention.
Yeah, it's got mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll live to tell. I promise I'll live to tell, man. I'll be back on the podcast for sure.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things where the blades being that close, the idea of swords, some people have fears of knives and being cut. No. My head being chopped and me feeling every blade before it gets thrusted towards the ground at like 500 miles an hour. That's what I'm afraid of. Just a.
Fortunately, the pilot is a former stuntman, and so
he's jumping.
No, he's not jumping, but it's going to be me and our DP, actually, our director of photography. He's taken the leap, and he's like, "Yeah, shit, man. If it helps raise funds for the production, I'm going to do it." His name's Kyle Grissom. So talented. I mean, this guy has an amazing eye for composition. But he's also a thrill seeker.
Yeah.
And so how many productions have the DP and the co-producer jumping out of a helicopter and skydiving to raise funds for their project? I don't know of many.
The bigger question is how, because this isn't all GoFundMe money, right? Mm-hmm. This is
right.
There's not just private equity, but private persons, or the right. planning of this. How much is this going to cost?
Probably a few favors.
Yeah.
Just put it like that. I don't think there'll be a dollar amount attached to it, but there's definitely going to be some favors.
So how does one? I've never known you to be this big of a production person. I thought you were the smaller, more niched, behind the scenes guy. You handled it. You got it done. You weren't very flashy about it. Now you're jumping out of helicopters like Will fucking Smith. So what happened? How'd you go from that to saving the animals of Oregon?
So it's interesting to save the animals in Oregon and to have this production come to fruition. There are private money sources again, but I really felt like I needed to be a part of the fundraising as well. And I've never been a real producer. I was more of a production company that would, come in and we would be more like I guess what you'd say, co-production. This is my first. I'm still a co-producer of this, but I'm a bigger part now. I'm in bed with the executive producer, and so because of that, you have to turn it up a few notches, especially in a society that we live in where you got kids doing these TikTok stunts and. I was going to base jump off of a building. The problem with that is the legalities.
Yeah, it's safer though.
Yes, much safer. But believe it or not, the government would put you in jail for that one. Yet they won't when you're jumping out of a helicopter
because it's private property, and the risk to private property.
Right. They don't care. They don't care about the individual, right? No. They care about what happens, or other individuals that were unsuspecting that got, smacked by you when you were on your way down.
Is there nothing the government does for these types of rescues, though? Do they offer any type of aid? Being that
they put a lot of, what they do? They put a lot of restrictions on people that are qualified. And it's because of the shit like Tiger King, the Joe Exotic and this Doc Antle and all these dipshits.
As soon as you said it, that's what I thought was all these crazy people.
And, the streaming services like Netflix, they ate it up. And why not? They're concerned about viewers. And I totally get that. But, our program is going to be pitched to Netflix, Hulu, Tubi, all the major streaming services. The difference is we're not doing it for the thrill factor as much as we are a different way of narrating and showing these animals and their handlers. And I'm not going to give too much away, but I will say this much. It is something that is revolutionary. It's totally different than any other type of docu-style, whether that's a docu-series, documentary, whatever it is. It's entirely different. The way that Connor and Kyle and the creative team have come up with this. So when you see it when people are going to feel an instant connection to these animals that they normally wouldn't through the use of art. And when I say art, I mean the way that it's captured, the way that it's edited, because it totally goes against the grain of what a regular docuseries, how they usually approach it. And a lot of these people are in the creative team, they're coming in and they're way undercompensated on the front end, and they're waiting to be compensated on the back end because everybody that's involved in this project has that much of a belief in the format that we're going to be filming in that they're like, okay, let's just do it. And not only that, but Kyle is a personal friend. And of course, I met, Connor through Kyle, and I told Kyle, I said, listen, I want you, because you're, going to be the DP on this. I want you to have all of the creative control over who you want to work with, shooters you want to work with, sound guys you want to work with, because too many productions I've seen, and I've heard horror stories where there's a bunch of chiefs and not enough Indians.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. I wanted to avoid that. So, and the style is entirely different. Everything from the filming of it and the story to the delivery and even the edits are, everything's going to be cloud-based. So it's, everybody will have access on the creative team to, like for instance, Connor's he's not going to be on set until the mid part of November because he's going to be in Costa Rica. So he'll be able to view all of this stuff while it's going on in Costa Rica and say, yes, I want this changed or that changed. So it's just different from every single thing that you've seen. Now, there's always, as well as I do, anything in life, when there's differences, um, it makes it that much harder.
Oh yeah, there can be a clash. But so this big of a project is, are you going into Oregon and staying there for a certain amount of time? Or you're acting like you're taking the role of the director and producer? Are you
No,
business
so
director?
it's such a misunderstood term. So when people hear DP, they think director of photography,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or director of picture. No, a DP is just a way of saying director. So he is the director. Kyle Grissom is the director of this docu-series.
Nice.
He's young, he's ambitious, he has an amazing work ethic. His portfolio is retardedly beautiful. I mean, the stuff that he captures is just unbelievable. And then you have Connor on the other hand, who is everything that Kyle is, and they're best friends, by the way, and they look like twins. It's crazy.
What?
Oh yeah, dude, they look like twins. They both have this crazy curly hair. They have the stash. And we're all doing the stash because we're gonna create hashtags. And I won't give any of it away, but it'll all make sense once the production starts and you see B-roll behind the footage.
How long's the production?
So we have 1 month to capture 3 episodes.
And you're doing three episodes for the pilot. Hopefully you sell the pilot.
Right.
And then
or option it.
Yeah, option it. And then so say you option it to Discovery, how does that type of process work?
Well, you have a creative team that will either critique what the future episodes will be like. There's also options in the contract, like that I have with Kyle, that says, if he wants to stay on with the new production company that would either buy or option, they have no ability to back out and say, oh, we're going to use a different director of photography, right? Mm-hmm. They have to use him. And so, or I said, listen, on the flip side, you can either do that or you get royalties or maybe both. And so, obviously, because it's a legal document, I can't disclose it, but he made a wise choice for his position. And usually, the director, they either, go on later on the, production, the real production. Pilots are experimental, and they are a way for the network to kind of see how everybody creatively interacts on these teams and what they capture. And then they can say, okay, yeah, we want to keep these key people, or, we want to drop these people. If there's, if the production company like us has an agreement ahead of time that says you cannot drop them, they can't option it. So, on to the next.
I've known writers in other states that have used their material and tried to create their own pilots and sold it to things like Amazon or Netflix. And then they play their pilot, they get it bought, and it's never picked up. Is that as devastating as I've been told?
Oh, I'm sure it is. I don't know how devastating that is because I'm not even there yet. But I can only assume, with the amount of work and love that you put into something, and then to have, to be crapped on by the networks, the big networks, that would be very difficult. I went into this thing I'm emotionally attached, obviously, because you have to be when it's art. But I also understand that even if the major networks have squabbles, there's other opportunities for this content, because if they don't pick it up, we own it.
Yeah.
And if we own it, we control distribution. If we control distribution, there's a lot more outlets than just Tubi, Hulu, Netflix, Pluto, all these other companies. There are. So yeah, in getting into that, I knew that could happen, and I'm okay with that. I'll take that risk. I'm the guy at the craps table, throwing 10,000 a roll. I've always been like that. I'm gonna go all in, and what happens will happen. And sometimes I've lost my ass. Sometimes I've been ahead, but I've never had a dull moment. There's never been a dull moment. And obviously it's a little different now that I'm, married and have a kid, and, things change. My risk appetite is lowered a lot, and I'll be 40 this year. So,
no, really?
Yeah, dude, 40. Yep.
I'm turning to 33 this year, and I'm just like, dang, the bones are starting to ache. I'm like, now I know what a Motrin is.
It hurts, man.
I didn't even know. I was like, what's a Motrin? I thought it was ibuprofen and Tylenol or just drugs. And then what's a Motrin? Oh, okay. Here we go. There's relief without effect.
Yeah, you learn. Yeah, the older you get, you learn about suppositories, medicines. Like, dude, look, dude. It's funny. Like, you laugh, but here's the deal. Like, these are so many things, especially us guys. We usually don't talk about that kind of
Nobody
stuff.
talks about hemorrhoids, not on YouTube.
I mean, like, seriously. But they happen.
Yeah.
And, when you age, it's just part of the process.
I think it's a big thing about what Americans eat versus what a lot of people, like I know a lot of people from Mexico down here, they've never heard of those problems because they don't eat the processed foods we do.
Right. And
so I'm about to start a meat-only diet. I'm going to try the carnivore.
Paleo.
Yeah, and see exactly how that works. The idea, it was a shift in how I ate and what I do. And I'm like, now I'm making my own coffee. I'm trying to get off the energy drinks because they're just so convenient for caffeine. But It's just like, that's my big thing.
It becomes easier. The routine becomes easier the older you get. And, you're like me, man. I can tell you're an old soul, and you have respect for your elders. And I think a lot of that probably came from the military. But, those are things that a lot of people, you're ahead. For your age.
I try. A lot of it came from my dad, for sure, and then the Army. But
yeah.
So are you the type of 40-year-old that has a 5-year, a 10-year plan, or are you balls to the wall 24/7?
A little bit of both. I'm a hybrid. Yeah, I have a plan, but I also understand that things can change at a moment's notice, and there's a lot of things in this world that we do not have control over. I'm a big believer in fate. I believe that things fall into place for reasons, and reasons that oftentimes we spend too much time trying to figure out, and we give a little too much emphasis on that. So I just go with it, man. If it feels right, and you're not fucking anyone over, you're not hurting people, go for it. Whatever it takes. But again. Yeah. Be mindful of the toes you step on and the people that, because, as well as I do, we have these nowadays. We have keyboards, and keyboards are way more destructive than words.
I believe it 100%. I'm more of nowadays. My plan is to build as many skills that I can hone, because I'll never be in a negative position when I can offer something to the world.
Right. Exactly. So, self-reliance for your family.
Exactly. And then I'm hoping to transfer that to my kids, but I know my son's going to be a bit of a hard ass. He's only 3 right now, but he's going on 60. He knows everything, and it's just no, daddy. Nope.
It's defiant.
It's so defiant. My daughter is a princess. She does everything we ask. Oh, man. But he just had to be the devil to a degree.
Man. They will test your patience, man. I never wanted kids. I never wanted to be married. I'm so happy that I have, Jack now. He's an awesome kid. He has his, thing. He likes to play video games, and sometimes he gets, a little mouthy, but
where would you be without him, right? That's exactly. I wouldn't be the person I am without mine, and I still say I never wanted kids.
On the other podcast.
Yeah, I never wanted to be this guy, and I was like, oh, you know what? I wouldn't be without him. So, dude, it's been great catching up with you, man.
Yeah, man.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast, man.
Thanks for coming, man. Sorry, it's been hectic trying to get you here.
No, hey, things happen, man.
No, yeah, we'll talk soon. I appreciate it.
Life can be super happy. Life can be super sad. I'm trying super hard to separate the good and bad. I go back to my future just to get to my past. But knowing me, my DeLorean will probably